All right, happy Thursday. Today I wanted to give you a great outline of what to expect when you're selling your house, right? It's a hot market. Everybody knows it's a hot market, but the selling process can be quite a bit, right? It can be overwhelming. So why not walk through that stuff, give you guys a really good insight into what to expect. I'm not really overly concerned about giving you so much that you know the intricate details of it, but I do want you to be ready. So many people are like, I don't even know how it works. So I just wanted to go over that stuff, right? And I will say this, I do have 15 steps that I'm about to share with you, but those steps change. It really depends on how the offer's written, what you're doing, what your timeline works like. Are you going to buy after? Are you renting after? There's so many different variables that it's impossible to give you a perfect list. But I'm going to give you a list that'll really give you about 90-95% of what to expect in the most common situations. And when I say common situations, it's probably 90% of the situations. So let's start off with number one, right? The first step to selling your home really comes down to motivation. I can't tell you how many people I've met with, they've invited me over. We start talking through, hey, what if this happens and what's your timeline look like? What are you going to do next? And they'll end it with, you know what? After thinking about this whole thing, I don't know if I'm ready, which is great. It is great to figure that out on day one before you get on the market, but really think about what are we going to do next? And is that truly what we want to do? And I'll tell you too, with motivation, you want to think not just of the sale. Because right now in this market, it is hot. Are you going to get 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 grand more than you would have gotten a year or two ago? Absolutely you will. But now you got to go buy. And when you go buy, you're in the same predicament that buyer who bought your home was in, right? Yes, you got a sweet deal. Yes, you got some great terms. But the buyer, when you're the buyer, you're going to be in the same situation going to purchase that next house, right? You're going to have to offer some great terms. That might not be the exact date you want, right? And you're going to have to offer a pretty good amount of change on that. So just remember those things before you move forward, all right? So step number two is nailing down your realtor. Now, of course, I'm a realtor. I'd love to help you out. But really, you want to ask great questions to make sure that that realtor is ready for your listing, right? So I like to look at a couple different things. What people are usually asking me is, Joe, can you explain what makes you different? Can you talk to me about your marketing plan? How accessible are you? Do you have a team that helps you, or are you by yourself? Are you a 40-hour-a-week guy or an 80-hour-a-week guy? Those are pretty common questions, right? When it comes down to it, though, for me, an analytical thinker, there's different types of personalities, but for me, I want to know all that stuff you're doing, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, what does it result in? So I look at three big statistics, right? I'll save the best one for third. The first stat that I'm looking at is how many days on average does it take you to sell my home? Now, in this market, the difference between the best realtor and the worst realtor is maybe a week or two. It's not a big difference, not enough to impact who you're going to take on as your team mate, right, with that realtor. Not for me, at least. The second thing is, what percentage of your listings actually sell? Now, in this market, it better be 100%. But I'll tell you, when it turns into a buyer's market, you're going to see those numbers changing. I remember back in 2007, 2008, you were lucky if you had 80% of your listings selling. From memory, I want to say it was about 60, 70% of listings were selling in a 6-month period, meaning 30, 40%, or maybe a third of them weren't. That is challenging. That's difficult, right? So looking at those percentages will tell you the odds of your home actually selling with that particular realtor. And then the third stat, which I think is the best one, especially in this market, is compared to original asking price, what percentage are you getting me in a final sales price? Okay, so they can talk about charging you big commissions, little commissions, anything in between, but really you want the best net. I would pay a little bit more for a guy if he's going to get me a lot of bit more. I'm not going to want a deal on somebody if they're going to lose me more than that savings in an average closing price. I want to know I'm getting a great deal. What are you bringing to the table when it comes to the average sales price? That's also going to tell me a little bit about your negotiation skills. It's also going to tell me how great you are with communication, how many hours you work, how good your marketing is. All those things that you're bragging about as a realtor can be summed up in what is the average sales price you're bringing to me. So I think that's a phenomenal question. If your realtor doesn't know it, they can quickly look it up. And if they can't quickly look it up, that's a pretty simple thing to do. That should be telling you something, right? Let's look at my list here. The number 3 thing, prep, right? So now you've decided that you're going to do it. You start signing all the paperwork with your realtor because you picked a great realtor, right? Now you've got to prep the home. So there's a couple big things you're going to do. Number 1, you want to take care of staging. I'll tell you right now, I'm about a 6 out of 10 when it comes to staging. I want to get a professional in there who can give you some great information, tell you what it is you need to do to collect the most amount of appeal from these buyers, right? How do you attract them? That's a big deal. And you want to get that staging done right away. You also want to get your inspection done. Now, you're probably saying, I'm the seller. It's a seller's market. Why would I pay for an inspection? Inspection is going to start at, I can tell you with DBJ inspections, I think they started about $329 from memory. And maybe a high-end inspection is $450, $500 if you get a lot of square footage in a pool and everything else. But you're probably averaging right around the high 3s, low 4s on an inspection. Why would you invest that? This is why. We get a lot of agents, buyer's agents from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and they don't want to drive up here on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday to show homes. They want to drive up one day, get it done, and call it a day. So they're going to come up, they're going to look at 5 houses, they're going to put 5 offers in, 3 are going to get accepted, and these offers are good, man. I can't tell you how great the offers are from down south. I don't know if you caught my eyes rolling there, but they were rolling. But they all have inspection contingencies. So what happens is when 3 of the 5 get accepted, they pick which one of the 3 they want, and they use the inspection contingency to get out of the other 2. A lot of times they're not even doing the inspection. They're just saying, I don't like the color of your paint. Done. And that's it. So how do you protect yourself as a seller from that scenario? And the way is to pay for an inspection up front, right? It's pretty cheap. And honestly, it gives you all the answers to the test. You might have, in fact, I have right now, someone that I'm dealing with and we're pending, and they had signs of a roof leak. That's a problem. That's a problem that if we're mid-contract could turn into a lot of money out of your pocket as a seller in a negotiation, right? That's at best. At worst, you could completely lose the buyer. That's a big challenge. It's frustrating. It's emotional. So if you have the inspection done up front and they can find it, which we did, we can get a professional roofing contractor to come out there and say, is this an old stain from a leak and now it's been repaired? Or is this something that's damp and we need to be worried about it in the future? That person came out and said, this looks at least a year or 2 old. I see you just got the roof done 2 years ago. Looking at the roof, looking at this, looking at that. This is something that's older than the roof. I'm not concerned about this anymore. And we got documentation to back it up. Now, as a buyer, when I see that, I can feel very comfortable moving forward, right? I can see all the issues up front. As a seller, I can fix the big issues or the simple issues to make sure that our report looks as good as possible. Now, think about that. As a buyer, when I walk in, I like the house. Instead of putting an inspection contingency, I'm saving roughly $400 on an inspection. If you've got a reputable inspector, I can trust the inspection. And out of the 13 items that popped up, I can see that 9 of them were repaired by the seller, and I've got the receipt stapled everything with it. That makes me feel pretty dang good. And as a seller, being able to nail down an offer that doesn't have a contingency on inspection in it, I can feel a little bit more confident knowing that I'm going to get to close successfully, right? So that's a big deal. Once you've got all of the staging, the inspection, and the repairs done, now it's time to get that photographer out there. That's the fun part. So if you got a good photographer, they're going to come out, they're going to have a drone, they're going to do some overhead shots. If you're anywhere near water, if you're anywhere near a park, if you're anywhere near a reserve, something that really sets your property apart location-wise, that drone is going to be able to capture that and show that to everybody who's looking at your property, which is really important. That is going to support the value that you're asking for, which again is critical to getting people in there, not just with offers, but with good, strong offers, right? They're going to come in and they're going to shoot wonderful photos. If your home doesn't look that good, if we didn't do a good job in the staging, they're going to make sure that they go through and they move some of that stuff to make this room look good. They're going to shoot it. They'll move it back for you, and then they'll go shoot the next room. They'll move some stuff out to make it look good. They'll shoot it, and then they'll put your stuff back. And they'll keep doing that to make sure everything looks good. So if you have a good photographer, I'm telling you, on an average $300,000-$400,000 home in St. Lucie County, you're going to get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 more on average than if you shoot it yourself with an iPhone. So it's very, very critical. All right, next, marketing. So marketing is on your realtor, right? To me, I'm telling you right now, 95% of marketing is simple. It's getting it on the MLS, which in turn connects it to all the IDX feeds on the major sites. I'm talking Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, Redfin, every major site that a buyer is going to go look at if they don't have a realtor, or if they do, but they're just not serious yet, right? They haven't gotten attached to an auto email from the MLS, which is direct. That's the best information you can get. It's the most accurate and up-to-date information. Instead, they're going on these other sites because they don't want the realtor's email and all that good stuff. They just want to be left alone. They want to do the search themselves. That's where you're going to get a lot of marketing presence, right? That's where you're going to get a lot of phone calls as a listing agent. And that's where you're going to get the most eyes on property is from those sites. So that's really important. But what other marketing are they doing? That's a big question. Do you have an email list that you're sending this stuff out to? Are you making calls around my neighborhood? Are you door knocking? Are we going to have an open house? What are we doing to get this property sold that's different than every other realtor? And again, don't just ask what they're doing. Make sure you know the stats that are attached to what their marketing plan is. If I'm a really good salesman and I come in and I pitch you the best sounding marketing plan, but it really doesn't produce. And then right behind me is a guy who produces. This guy is a big shot, man. He is great at getting your property sold, but he doesn't really have a flashy marketing plan. It's an effective marketing plan, but it doesn't sound that great. Which one would you rather have? You'd rather have the one that gets you the results. So again, yes, ask about the marketing, but make sure you know the results of that marketing, all right? Next on the list, showings and open houses. This is really important. A lot of realtors are going to use something called showing time, right? I would guess 80-90% of realtors use it. Showing time is phenomenal because it makes everything so easy and organized. I can go in at the end of the day, if I'm really busy today, I just got a brand new listing yesterday, I'm really busy all day, I can go in at the end of the day and I can see 8 people show my listing. Here are the times that they showed it. It's going to give me feedback because it automatically emails them. It's going to give me feedback on those showings. So I know if we've got somebody who's hot or if we've got a problem with the home. Maybe I got a bad nose today and my sellers, they've been smoking for 30 years so they can't smell it, but the home smells like smoke. And I didn't notice it for whatever reason, but I see 3 of the 8 showings said, smells like smoke, smells like smoke, smells like smoke. Boom, we can shut down showings, we can pause the listing, and we can get some people in there to take care of that odor to ensure that we get top dollar for that house. If we didn't have systems like that in place, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. So showing time really helps with the automation and ease of setting up appointments from the buyer's agent standpoint, but from the listing agent standpoint, it's such a good organizational tool. It's just awesome, right? So with showings, you want to know from your sellers, right? As an agent, from my sellers, how are we going to schedule these showings? Are you going to be present at showings or not? In my opinion, you should not be present. The reason I think that is when I want to buy something, when anybody wants to buy something, you want to bring up all the issues that you're thinking of. And if you can bring up the issues and the salesman in front of you kindly and with an education intent, not a sales intent, can walk you through solving those issues. Oh, I understand that issue, but did you know you could do this and that would potentially solve that issue? Oh, yeah, it would. That's how you can get people to buy into a house. If you've got a seller there and that seller's sole intent, and it is every single time, is to sell that house, it gets really challenging to be able to trust them. And you don't want to insult them, so you're not going to say anything negative about the house. As a buyer's agent, I can't overcome your issues if I don't know them. But if the seller's not there, and I can politely at the end of the showing ask you, what do you like about this house? What don't you like about this house? With the things you don't like about the house, let's talk about solutions and see if they're palatable or not. If they are, maybe we move forward. If they're not, let's get the heck out of here and get on to the next house, right? So I highly suggest getting out of the house. I say the same thing to listing agents too. Listing agents sometimes will say, yeah, but I know how to sell the house and I know how to do. Great. There are places on the MLS where you can attach a feature sheet under documents. And if you're worried about me not knowing how to sell the house, can see everything on there, right? So you've given me all the information if you're a good listing agent. I don't need you there. In fact, you being there makes my clients a little bit more uncomfortable, and they're not going to want to bring up the issues they have that I would be able to solve if you weren't present. So can you sell a house being present? Yes, but I highly suggest you get out of there, right? Open houses working. Open houses are working, right? It's an added piece of marketing. And open houses do work. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that I've seen, especially in this market with open houses versus say 10, 15 years ago, is when you do an open house, you're going to get 20, 30, 40. At one open house, I had over 100 people through. The feeling that creates, right? The anticipation, the excitement, the I have to move now on a strong offer is incredible. So if you can create that for your sellers, that's huge, right? So having an open house is big, but it's not just having an open. Most agents are just going to have an open. How do you have an open? You just show up and you put a sign in the yard, right? Maybe I put a Facebook post up. That's about it. You can actually go on the MLS and you can click a box, put in all the data, the times, the location, all that good stuff, and it will tell all of the IDX feeds. Again, Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, Redfin, it'll tell all of them, all the buyers, that you're having an open house and what time you're going to have it. So now a lot of those buyers are going to save that and they're going to show up to that open house. You can put signs everywhere, of course, assuming that you're meeting city codes and everything like that. But if it's on private property, it's not in an HOA, and you've asked the seller, I shouldn't say the seller, I'm thinking like a realtor, the homeowner of that property, you can put signs up all over the place, right? It's only going to be there for an hour or two, however long your open house is, and you're driving more traffic, right? You can call the 100 closest neighbors. Now you're probably thinking, the 100 closest neighbors, why would they buy my house? They're probably not going to buy your house, but they've got friends and family that have been talking to them for months about moving closer to them. And if they knew you were having an open house, man, that might be the spark they needed for them to make that phone call and sell the house for you, right? I'll also tell you, and I'll use the Cascades as an example. I've had listings in the Cascades that are on the water. And what ends up happening, I think I've had this twice now. The person who bought the home was someone who'd already lived in the Cascades. They lived a few houses down. But they ended up finding out that this home is on the other side of the street, which is on the water, and it's a little bit bigger. Maybe it's got a pool, whatever it is. And they've said, hey, we got to get in this house and we got to get into it now. We've waited for this opportunity forever. Let's do it. So calling the neighbors helps. And then going around the day of and knocking on their doors, right? Hand them an invitation to the open house, giving them some beautiful photos that your photographer took with basic information, including the price. What a helpful tool that is, right? And then while you're there, do a Facebook Live, man. You should really be pushing this listing, or at least your realtor should, to ensure that you're driving as much traffic as possible. Then, of course, you want a way to collect as much information on the people who come through who are interested as possible. So afterwards, you can follow up with them and see if you can get some offers created, right? All right, next. So now you've done all this great work of scheduling these showings from the marketing that you've put on because you have the great realtor who took the phenomenal photos. And now you get an offer. So you got the offer process. The offer process is completely negotiable. It can take months, it can take weeks, it can take days, it can take minutes. I'll tell you, when I purchased my house, it didn't even hit the market. It hit Facebook. I got a Facebook DM from a really good friend. I was driving there before I even knew whose house it was. 4 minutes after it hit Facebook, I was at the doorstep of that house. It's this house right here. And I walked through, and the owner said, I've got an appointment. I got to get out of here, but we can schedule a time to see it later. I said, I'll be 60 seconds or less, I swear. I jogged through the house, came back probably 42 seconds later, and I said, I'll take it, right? So the offer process can be quick, or it can take a while. And you as the seller can take as long as you want to think about things. Do you risk losing an offer? Yes. Right? As a buyer, you can take as long as you want to think. Do you risk another buyer swooping in? Yes, but you can take as long as you want or be as quick as you want. You can offer great terms, low terms. You can negotiate, not negotiate, whatever you want to do. But you should have a wonderful buyer's agent there as a buyer to give you recommendations on what to do. And as a listing agent, you should have a strategy already in place. Part of it, as we talked about, was that inspection contingency, right? Let's get it done up front. Let's get some of these things repaired to create as beautiful an experience as possible for that buyer. So that offer situation in this market, most homes are selling in 7 to 14 days. You're going to be under contract, and now you're good to go. So that's the next part, right? What are we on? Step 8 out of 15. You're under contract. Now what do we do? As a buyer, you've got a lot of work to do. You got to get your escrow funds in. You've got to schedule your inspection if you've got one. You got to let your lender know that you've got a contract that's been completely executed. You got to get them that contract. They're going to start scheduling the appraiser. You got all kinds of things going on in the background on the buy side. But on the sell side, it's pretty easy, right? If you've got a good agent, they're going to get all the documentation to everybody who needs it. I'm talking about the buyer's agent, the buyers, the appraiser, the inspector, title, you name it. Everybody's going to have that. They're going to know what's going on, okay? Title's doing a lot of your work in the background. If you need to know something or if there's a decision to be made, either your realtor or title are going to reach out to you and ask you a question. But proactively, you really don't need to do anything. You only respond at that point. It's pretty simple. So once you go under contract, everything's pretty easy. Step number 9 is escrow. Again, as a seller, you don't have any responsibility in this. You're literally just looking out, and it'll tell you on page 1 of the contract how many days they have to get their escrow funds in and how much their escrow funds are. That's part of the negotiation. All you're looking for is to see that proof of deposit has been emailed to you. You just want to make sure it happened. That's it. Again, you got a good realtor, you got a good transaction coordinator, and your title company's on it. You don't have to do any work. All you got to do is keep an eye out, right? Step number 10 is that inspection. If they did want an inspection, if you didn't purchase one and now they have an inspection contingency, now they're going to order that inspection. You can negotiate anything you want when it comes to an inspection contingency timeline, but it's usually going to be between 5 and 15 days, right? So if you've got a really aggressive buyer, they might say, hey, we'll get it in 5 days. I've even seen 3 days. But the challenge is finding an inspector who will do it. Again, I love DBJ inspections. They just came out because we have this issue as realtors. We want to get them done as quickly as we can. DBJ solved the problem of inspectors saying, we can't get it done for 7 to 10 days. We're too busy. And they said, we're going to get so many doggone inspectors, great programs, great systems, great checklists that we can get them done in 2 days or less guaranteed. If you find an inspector like that, that's pretty amazing, right? So now you've got your inspection period. This is where everybody is walking on thin ice. So the inspector is going to come through, hired by the buyer, okay? And they're going to go through, and their job is to look at state requirements as to what it is they need to tell you as a buyer, what's going on with the home. They do not represent the seller. They're there, paid for by the buyer. So the buyer is going to get the report. The buyer's report is going to have pictures, videos, explanations, phone numbers for help, whatever it is they need. And at the end, a good inspector is going to sit down for 5-10 minutes with the buyer and explain all of the major issues, right? Now, I'll tell you, on a really nice home, a home that's maybe 5-10 years old, it's been updated, it's in great condition, well-maintained, you're still going to have 15, 20, 25 issues pop up. You just are. You're going to have a cracked tile. You're going to have a fascia board that's got a little bit of wood rot on it. You're going to have a shingle on your roof that's got a little bit of curl on the end. You're going to have a tree branch touching the side of your house. You're going to have these things that are naturally going to pop up on your report. Don't fret. And I would tell you too, if you've got a good realtor, both the seller's realtor and the buyer's realtor, they're going to prepare you for that, right? Expectation management, they're going to tell you what to expect. So when it happens, it's really not going to be scary or concerning. You're going to expect this. Now, hopefully that buyer's agent who you don't control is doing the same thing with their buyer, right? These are big issues. This is what we should be concerned for. Let's look out for those things. But these are common things that happen on a lot of reports, whether it's a good home, an old home, whatever. Those are things I probably would not be concerned about. Without that expectation management, a lot of times you're going to see buyers come back and say, I want all 23 things fixed. That's a little overwhelming. A lot of times that's going to kill a deal just because the intent and the emotion involved alone. So again, that expectation management is crucial during the inspection period. But whenever that inspection period is, let's say it's 7 days, if nothing has come through and day 8 rolls around, or if something is submitted to you and you sign off on it, maybe they're asking you for $500 off for whatever issue, or maybe they're asking you to repair ABC by whatever date and you agree to it. Once all that's done, you move on to the next step, okay? So the next big step is underwriting. Now, underwriting has already kind of been happening, right? Once all of this information, the packet, the contract, everything that's been signed is submitted to the lender, that lender's going to start looking at it, and within a day, 2 days, 3 days, if they're a good lender, they're going to get that stuff to their underwriters. Their underwriter's job is to protect the bank, okay? The realtor is making a commission. I want to sell the house. The buyer's agent's making a commission. They want to sell the house. The lender is making a commission. They want to sell the house. But the underwriter is making salary. They want to protect the bank. They don't care if the house sells or not. So their job is to look at the income, at the debts, at the credit score, at the employment of this buyer to ensure that they're checking all the boxes required by that particular loan program. Okay, so they're going in and they're giving different things back to the lender saying, hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? Can you solve this problem? Can I see this piece of paperwork? If yes, great. If not, we got problems, right? Once they get through all these things, these are conditions, right? Can you meet the conditions? Eventually, you're going to get loan approval. Now, if you've got a lot of the underwriting done up front, you might be able to get a loan approval within 14 days, right? That's pretty aggressive. But on a normal loan, you're looking for 21 to 30 days for loan approval. With some lenders, they're going to ask for 40 to 45 days for loan approval. I'll tell you personally, if I see 40, 45 days, I'm already a little concerned about that lender because I'm already thinking, man, you must be really busy if you need 40, 45 days. So for me, I'm not saying it's a red flag, but I will say it's a pink flag, right? So it's something to think about. But normally you should have that loan approval within 21 to 30 days. So that's your underwriting. Then we got appraisal. This is the big one now. So once you're through the inspection period, if you've got a great lender, they're going to order that appraisal the day after that inspection period's over, okay? They don't usually order it before just because, I'm making up this number, but I would guess maybe 10, 15% of deals fall apart during the inspection period. You don't want to charge that buyer because the buyer's going to pay for that appraisal. And that appraisal is maybe $500, $600, $700. You don't want to charge a buyer who's not purchasing a house $500, $600, $700 for an appraisal that they're never going to use. And you have to pay for it on day one. So they're going to wait until the inspection period's over and then they're going to set up that appraisal, right? That's why on a quick close, you're rushing to get that inspection done. It's because we know that the clock hasn't started yet for the appraiser until that inspection period is over in most cases. So once that's done, my whole team is calling the lender immediately. Hey, we just got through inspection period. When can we get that appraisal ordered? If you don't pick up, we're calling you the next day. Hey, the inspection period's done. When are we getting that appraisal done? Hey, how are we looking at that appraisal? What's the appraisal date look like? Hey, can you tell me about that appraisal? We want that thing ordered now because sometimes, especially when COVID hit, it's going to take 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to get these guys out there. And then even after they get out there, it might take a week or two to get the report back. Some of these guys are taking a long time. Some of them are getting them done in 2, 3 weeks. It's no problem. But you want to give yourself the best odds possible. So you want to make sure you're on that appraiser. Now, again, if you're the seller, your whole role on this is to just watch your realtor kick butt. That's it. If your realtor's kicking butt, you're just sitting back in your chair and you're watching. That's it. But once that appraiser comes back with the appraisal, that appraisal is going to have a number. If the number hits whatever it is that the home needs to appraise for. So a lot of times in cash deals, they won't include an appraisal contingency because the buyer's paying cash. Most buyers with cash don't care if the home is worth what they're paying for. They've done their due diligence. They've looked around. They know this is the home they're interested in. I don't need an appraisal. And I don't want to pay for one, right? But if you've got conventional FHA or VA financing, with almost all of them, you're going to need an appraisal. Now, some conventional loans I've seen, if you're in a specific area, if you've got a specific buyer, they will not require that appraisal. But that's pretty few and far between. So most of them are going to require it. So then the big question is, does it hit our number? So let's say we're looking at a $400,000 home. If it comes in at 400, boom, you're good. But then I get the question from sellers, what if it comes in at 410? Do I get 410? No, you don't. You get 400, right? So then the other question is, what if it comes in at 390? And if it comes in at 390, 10 grand low, you got 4 options, right? The first option is, as a seller, you can drop the price 10 grand. So now you're at 390. They can get funding up to 390 because they can get funding up to the appraised amount. You're good to go. Everybody's happy. They got a $10,000 deal. You move forward. Second option is the buyer comes up with that $10,000 difference in cash. Now, maybe they got a conventional loan and they're going 20% down, plus they're going to have 3% in closing costs. That's 23%. 23% of 390 why would I do this to myself, is roughly 78 and 12-ish is, you're looking at what, $90,000? You're not just coming up with the 90,000, you need the other 10,000 for the difference. So you're coming up with roughly $100,000, assuming my math is right, on that particular property, right? Now that's the bad news. The bad news is you're coming up with the 10 grand. The good news is you're only funding 390, not 400 like you had initially planned. So your payment is going to be a little bit smaller than it otherwise would have, and the debt that you owe is going to be a little bit smaller, okay? Then you get the third option. The third option is what we usually see, and that's some sort of compromise in the middle. So maybe the seller's dropping the price $5,000 and the buyer comes up $5,000 with cash, or maybe it's 6 and 4, 7 and 3, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. As long as those two numbers in a negotiation meet in the middle and they total the $10,000 difference, you're good to go, right? And then we get the fourth option. This is the option nobody likes. The fourth option is the deal falls apart. Now, yes, you did put money into escrow in the beginning, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, but because you had an appraisal contingency, assuming you did have an appraisal contingency, you're going to get your money back. So you don't have to worry about losing your escrow funds. If you're doing all the right things, there's no reason a buyer is going to lose their escrow funds 99% of the time, right? It's only when you've run out of contingencies, all of the things you've asked for have been met, and now you're still trying to walk. Now you're going to have problems, and they're probably going to hold that escrow fund amount over your head as leverage, right? But otherwise, you're really, in my opinion, not risking a lot. I've done 350 deals. I've never seen anybody lose their escrow money. So if everybody's doing the things they should, it's not as risky as it sounds. So that's the appraisal. Step 13, we got the clear to close. That's what everybody wants. Once you get clear to close, boom, we're in smooth sailing land, right? So we're good to go. And really, we're probably a couple days out from closing. You've got the clear to close. At that point, all your worries have gone away. But that means all of the requirements from the lender, from underwriting, have to have been met. So that's the appraisal, that's all the employment documentation, if they're re-verifying anything, all of that has already been met before they give the clear to close, okay? And then the lender is going to send the package off to the title company so that both the buyer and the seller can come in and they can sign whatever it is that they've got scheduled to sign, okay? Then you've got closing. This is step number 14, all right? With closing, and I'm attaching two things here with closing. As a buyer, you've got a final walkthrough. You're going to want to go through and do a final walkthrough. What are you looking for in a final walkthrough? You're looking to see that the home is in the same condition or better as it was on the date of showing, and any improvements they agreed to make, they made them. So if you go through the home and it looks in X condition, whatever that condition is, right? And you said, hey, I want you to repair the dishwasher. It has to look in X condition or better, and the dishwasher has to be repaired. If those things have not been met, what I always tell my buyers to do, even though it's their choice, is do not sign the papers, do not close here. We're going to negotiate something, but they're going to make sure that they get it back in the condition it's supposed to be in, and or they're going to get the dishwasher fixed. And then after we verify that, we'll close and we'll sign on documents. Now that can be a pain in the butt. It can be a challenging time-wise. It can be a challenge emotions-wise. And there are a lot of different things going on. But you can also negotiate, hey, if you didn't get this done, Mr. Seller, you're going to pay for a hotel room for us, or you're going to pay for an extra day with the movers, or you're going to whatever. And if you don't do that, now we've got some issues, right? And then you got to talk about legalities and everything. I'll tell you, I rarely have that issue. But from a seller's standpoint, what you need to know is when that buyer with their buyer's agent is coming through and they're doing that final walkthrough, it's probably going to be either the day of or the day before closing. They want to see that it's in the same condition it was in showing, and you've gotten all the repairs done, okay? If you have any issues and you know it's going to be an issue, number one, try to solve them, right? So if you get a hole in the wall and it was an accident, it was while you were moving out the bed, you want to instantly let that buyer know through their buyer's agent, and you want to say, this is how we plan on repairing it. Are you okay with that? And then you go forward. If you repair it and the paint you put doesn't match and that buyer comes through and they want to be a stickler about it, you might have to redo it or lose the sale, right? There are a lot of legalities involved and different things like that, but I would really, really, really impress upon you that you want to keep in good communication with the buy side to make sure they're happy with that stuff, all right? Again, make sure all repairs are done, and in an ideal situation, you're going to have all of your stuff out of the house so they can see any potential issues, okay? I've been in situations before where we close at noon and we'll do the final walkthrough at 10:30, and at 10:30 the house is full of the seller's stuff. Sellers, you need to get all of the stuff out of there so at signing, the buyer can feel comfortable signing the papers and moving into the house. If they got to worry about you still living in their house, they're taking on liability, right? So what I'll usually say in that circumstance is, we're going to go for lunch. We're going to go chill and do whatever we want. When you guys are ready, let us know, but it better be today. And we're going to move closing to 4:30. Can you get it done by 4 o'clock so we can see it? And then we'll go to closing afterwards. But it is your responsibility, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to get that done before we come through and do that walkthrough for closing, right? That's critical. So a lot of times, I don't know if people know that. I've only seen that happen maybe 3-4 times in my career, but every single time the seller says, I didn't know. So I think it's a great thing to push out there, right? And then the last thing is number 15, follow up. If you've got a good realtor, they're going to follow up with you. Hey, you're a homeowner. Welcome to home ownership. It's great. But part of that is your plumbing isn't going to work. Your electric isn't going to work. Your roof is going to leak. You're going to have different issues, right? As you have those issues, I am your guy. I've already been paid for. I love my job. If you need a plumber, call me. If you need an electrician, text me, and I'll get you the information for those guys so you can move forward comfortably with someone that I trust. And really, your realtor for life should be the hub, should be the person that you go back to and ask for any advice when it comes to real estate. Guys, that was a pretty good in-depth informational video, but if there's anything I missed, any questions you have, anything I touched on but you wish I'd gone deeper, please put a comment down below and I'll get back to you with those answers right away. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day.